This morning, we paid a taxi to take us backwards.
Aquí estamos en la glorieta.
Not because we were lost and not because we had forgotten something. We took a taxi backwards so that we could get out and walk forward again. Which, if you have never walked a Camino, probably sounds completely ridiculous. And somehow, that was only the beginning. The explanation starts with the previous evening. We had finished walking in a small village, Minho, but traveling with the Blue changes accommodation quite a lot, and there was nowhere suitable for all three of us to stay. We could have continued walking until we found the somewhere else, but Blue had already done his stage. We had already done ours, and pushing everybody farther just because the accommodation did not work felt unnecessary. So we took taxi somewhere else for the night. The next morning, the easiest option would have been to ask the driver to drop us farther along the route and simply continue from there. Instead, we asked him to take us back to exactly where we had stopped. Funny enough that nobody was checking on us. There was no Camino police hiding behind the tree, and Santiago was not going to move because we skipped a few kilometers. But we knew where we had finished, so that was where we wanted to begin again. But before we could become too impressed with our commitment, though, we needed breakfast. And that morning breakfast meant pan tumaca. There are many complicated conversations about the nutrition for long distance walking, but sometimes the system is much simpler. Bread, tomato, olive oil, coffee, and suddenly everyone becomes much more willing to face another day. Outside, Galicia had prepared one of its usual surprises: rain. Not a massive rain, but enough to make the jacket come out and start the familiar debate whether we were actually wet enough to bother putting them on. There's a strange amount of weather negotiation on the Camino. You put the jacket on, you get too warm. Then you take it off and the rain gets stronger. You put it back on and 20 minutes later you are wondering whether being wet from the rain was actually better than being wet inside of the jacket. Eventually we settled into the day and continued towards Ponte de Porco. The name alone is enough to make you stop. The Pig Bridge. And once somebody names the bridge after a pig, I need an explanation. The place is connected to the Andreade family, one of the most powerful medieval families in this part of Galicia, and the wild boar was one of the symbols linked to them. But the local legend is the part people tend to remember. Rochin Rochal was said to have fallen in love with Teresa, the daughter of his lord. She was married to someone else, and later, while out hunting, she was attacked and killed by the wounded wild boar. A few days afterwards, the animal was found dead with a dagger in his throat, a dagger linked to Roshin. It is one of those stories that turns out the ordinary looking place into something you suddenly want to understand. And if you pass through here by car, we might have noticed the sign, maybe laughed at the name and continued. But walking gives places more time to explain themselves. So you see, when it comes to planning your first Camino, one of the easiest ways to get overwhelmed is trying to pull information from 10 different places and somehow turn them into the clear plan. That's why we used Gronze. Gronze is one of the oldest and the best known Camino planning platforms, and their website is specifically useful when you're still in the pre-Camino phase, trying to make sense of it all. You can compare different routes, look at the stages day by day, check distances and elevations, see the towns along the way, and get a much clearer picture of what your Camino actually looked like before you even start. I say that matters because planning the first Camino is not only about building the most ambitious itinerary, it's about building one that fits your time, your body, and the kind of experience you want to have. And once you're actually out there walking, they also have an app for the Camino, which we use all the time. Remember, the gronze.com, you can find it in the Apple Store, Google Play Store, and in the link just in the description. We crossed something much smaller. Someone had made a tap at their home available for people who walked past. That was it. No monument, no legend, no medieval tragedy, just water. But when you walk in all day, a tap can become very important. Somebody who lives here knows that strangers pass every day carrying everything they have on their backs, so they make one tiny part of the journey easier for people they may never meet. We filled what needed filling, made sure the blue had enough, and carried on. His questions are much simpler than ours. Can I drink? Can I smell it? Can I get inside it? And the answer to the third one is yes, we may be staying for a while. So when we found the water again, Blue decided that this was clearly one of the major attractions of the Camino Inglés. There are moments when you are trying very hard to make serious travel documentary, while Blue is behind us having what appeared to be the best day of his life. And to be fair, he might understand the Camino better than we do. He does not care how many kilometers are left, what century the bridge was built, or whether we are on schedule. There is water now, so water is important now. Oh, where's my cake?
There are 2 pieces, eh?
But they come together with the coffee, amore.
The juice also came from me and you drank half.
Are you having a juice without me? Let me try.
You already drank.
I love this Camino vibe, you know? You're eating my things. It's good we used to have so many stops, you know, so we can enjoy, eh? And this is another one of those moments where something beside the route made us stop and ask questions. There is a cross there, surrounded by stones, and if you know the Camino Frances, it immediately reminds you of Cruz de Ferro. And the story we encountered was that this place grew from someone's affection to the Camino and the desire to bring a little of that Cruz de Ferro spirit to this route. Whether you know the original tradition or not, you can tell immediately that this is not just something people pass. They stop, they leave stone, they interact with, and this is what makes place like this interesting. The object itself can be simple, but the meaning comes from what people have done there over time. A stone is just a stone until someone carries it because it represents something. A cross beside the road is just a cross until people begin stopping there. And a bridge is just a bridge until you know the story attached to it. The Camino is full of places that became important because people keep giving them attention. So we stayed for a while, looked around, and we kept moving. Eventually, the route began bringing us towards Betanzos. And Betanzos feels very different from the smaller places we had been passing through during the day. After hours on road, countryside, suddenly there are streets, churches, squares, buildings, and the feeling that you have properly arrived somewhere. Betanzos has a strong historic connection to the Camino Inglés, and you can feel it immediately that this is not just stopping somewhere convenient to sleep. There is much more going on here. We walked through the center, looked at the churches, explored the streets, and slowly started paying attention to the other thing Betanzos is famous for: tortilla. Now, tortilla in Spain is not the casual subject. People have opinions, sometimes the strong opinions, onions or no onions, cooked through or still soft. At what point does runny becomes too runny? And Betanzos had made the position very, very clear. The local tortilla is famously juicy inside and traditionally made without onion. And after a day spending traveling backwards in a taxi so we could walk forward, stopping at the bridge because of the old legend, caring deeply about the private tap, we were now prepared to take eggs and potatoes extremely seriously. None of these things is Santiago. But after a few days on the Camino, Santiago can feel very far away, while the things directly in front of you become completely important. So from the outside, some Camino behaviors really does look ridiculous. And maybe some of it is. But walking gives you enough time to care about places and details that would otherwise disappear in seconds. Anyways, enough philosophy. Now we have a tortilla to deal with. And if you like what we do, remember to subscribe. This is absolutely for free and helps us to provide this free information to everybody. Buen camino.